What's up, people? It's your boy Shane G. We are back with another episode of Politics as usual. And let's get right into it. I got a couple of articles that we're going to discuss. And I apologize about last week. Some of the audio got a little bit messed up for about 2 minutes at the beginning. I time stamped it though. So if you want to hear the bulk of what I'm talking about, just go ahead and bypass that little segment. I time stamped it. It'll get you right to where you need to be. It's only about 2 minutes out of the full segment. So I do apologize about that, but we fixed it as you can tell, so we back on point. Um, Make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, Ethos Media Network. So we're gonna get into it. What I was basically talking about last week is the differences how the media discusses when a Republican president does something versus when a Democrat president basically does the exact same thing. I'm against things in principle, so I'm anti-war no matter who does it. So I don't like Bush, I don't like Obama, I don't like Trump, I don't like Biden. You get what I'm saying? I'm in favor of more social programs. You know what I mean? I'm in favor of wealth redistribution to a certain degree. I don't believe in rich people not being allowed to exist, but I do believe that the balance is out of whack. So, all of the presidents, basically since I was born, have basically governed the exact same way, but people like to pretend like there's these huge differences between the two parties. And that's what I'm here to basically rid you of that whole notion. There is not really that much difference between the two parties. And I have a few articles that we'll go over just so that you can see what I see. So let's get into it. So this article obviously comes from Vera. This is from June 23rd of last year. Last year, Happy New Year once again. It's 2023. So this is from June 23rd of 2022. Children are still being separated from their families at the border. Biden was president already. Just want to keep that in mind. United States immigration law allows people who are fleeing violence and persecution to request asylum at or near the border. And in a shameful chapter of our recent history, the United States intentionally separated children from their parents to deter families from exercising this right. So we were doing it on purpose to get people to not want to even come here in the first place. We were like, if you come here, we're going to separate you from your kids. Though family separation is no longer explicitly used as a weapon in U.S. immigration policy, it is still a horrifying result. Over the past decade, hundreds of thousands of children have come to the United States without their parents, and we have not built a system to receive them with compassion and respect. In fiscal year 2021, a record 122,000 children were taken into custody without their parents, into U.S. custody without their parents. But far too many of them have been safely remained with their could have safely remained with their parents or other family members if the United States had better systems and policies. One problem is that Title 42 is still being used to expel adult asylum seekers. During the pandemic, the Trump administration exploited a little known clause in public health law as a pretext to deny asylum seekers entry into the country. The Biden administration exempted unaccompanied children from the Title 42, but is still using the statute to expel children who arrive as part of a family unit. As a result, many parents who arrived at the border with their children and were sent back to Mexico were forced to make the difficult decision to send their children back to the United States alone so that they could present themselves as unaccompanied rather than have them stay in dangerous border encampments. In fiscal year 2021, 12,212 migrating children re entered the United States alone after having been expelled from their country with their families under Title 42. These separations are traumatic and unnecessary. Families should be allowed to request asylum together. Okay, so the point of that article is basically just to show you guys that Biden is continuing the policies that everyone hated Trump for. The media constantly bashing Trump. Rachel Maddow getting on her show crying. Literally crying. AOC taking pictures at the border crying. They're still doing all the same policies right now, and nobody's saying a word about it. That's what I'm talking about right there. We hated it under Trump. Biden's doing the same thing. Nobody says a word. That's the problem. Let's continue. Speaking of the same thing, this is how the media likes to cover it. This is how the media likes to do it. Come on, fam. We Just gonna block the whole thing. Decline. Yeah, get out of here. Trying to read the news, player. All right, there we go. Claim of kids in cages hypocrisy is missing context. So this is how they're trying to muddy the waters and say, oh, yeah, Trump, he did this thing that we all hated and we all slammed him for. Biden's kind of doing the same thing, but it's a little different, so that's why we're not as hard on him. That's what they're doing right now. Let's go over how they're doing this. Missing context. They love to say that. The claim. The same people who criticize how immigrant children were treated under the Trump administration and claim Trump put kids in cages are now okay with the Biden administration doing the same thing. That is a very solid claim. And y'all remember how when we went through that Russia article, how there was one sentence at the end of the article that kind of told you the reality of the situation, even though they had put all these thoughts into your head leading up to that point? Let's see if they do the same thing in this article. AP's assessment, missing context. Biden is reopening a surge facility first opened by Trump for teenagers who arrive at the border without their parents. A different facility run by the Border Patrol was a major focus of the kids in cages criticism in 2018, largely because the Trump administration held children there in cells partitioned with chain link fencing after separating them from their parents. That family separation policy is no longer in effect. But remember what we just went over in the last article, that even though that specific policy isn't in effect anymore, the other policies that they have built around it result in the exact same thing, which is family separation. So even though we're not purposely separating families, the end result of what we're doing is still separating families. So there's no difference. Like if somebody is shooting at your neighbor and you're outside and they accidentally hit you, you give it like that's what that, like, you're not going to be less mad because they didn't mean to shoot you, even though they did. You're going to be just as upset because you got shot. Same thing. I don't care if you didn't intend to separate these families. If the families are still being separated, it's the same shit. Continuing on. The facts. On Monday, the Biden administration reopened a surge facility to house up to 700 immigrant teenagers who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border without their parents. The Trump administration originally opened the facility in 2019 in rural Texas after converting it from a camp used by oil field workers. Under federal law, children arriving at the border without parents should be transferred within 3 days from U.S. Border Patrol custody to long-term facilities run by U.S. Health and Human Services until they can be released to family members or sponsors. When the number of arriving children spiked in the past, both the Obama administration and the Trump administration resorted to opening influx facilities to temporarily house a large number of children before they could transition to long-term facilities. So, right there, what they're saying is Obama actually did this first. But nobody said anything about it when Obama was doing it, and then Trump took over, and then everyone had a problem with it. The Trump administration shuttered the Carrizo Springs facility in late July 2019, less than 1 month after it opened, and remained closed through the rest of Trump's term. All right, for sure. Let's get down here though. So basically, and another thing that they're saying, actually, I do want to read this part really quick. Democratic lawmakers have previously criticized using surge facilities like the one in Carrizo Springs. While they have beds, classrooms, and dining areas, they are not subject to the same licensing requirements as other long-term facilities operated by the Health and Human Services and are expensive. So if they're the same facilities that Obama was using, that Trump was now using, where did the whole cages thing come from? Because, yeah, there was like chain link fencing around some of the stuff or whatever, but it says right here, they have beds. It says right here, while they have beds, classrooms, and dining areas. That doesn't sound like cages or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it seems like they're trying to make it sound worse than what it is, or they're trying to lessen it when it's Obama, but make it worse when it's Trump. Like, as far as just how they're talking about it. At a press briefing Tuesday, oh yeah, we don't care about what Jen Psaki has to say. Let's go down here. In response to a reporter's question, Psaki refuted that the move was equivalent to putting kids in cages, a criticism voiced by Biden and other Democrats against the Trump administration, for separating children from their parents and holding them in chain link fenced cells inside border facilities. Following the announcement of the reopening, conservative commentators and Republicans swiftly accused the Biden administration of hypocrisy. Kids in cages are now called migrant facilities, aka migrant summer camps. They aren't called kids in cages anymore, they're called migrant children in overflow facilities because one of the guys that built the cages is president now. That's actually true, we're going to get into that, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about, one of the sprinkles of truth that they put in the article. The posts are missing the context that the controversy over kids in cages that emerged during the Trump administration was largely focused on the policy of separating families and then holding children in enclosures partitioned with chain link fencing. In many cases, authorities failed to keep records to reunite the families. A Border Patrol center in McAllen, Texas that used chain link fencing became the focal point for critics of Trump when the administration housed children there who had just been separated from parents or other relatives at the border. The facility, a converted warehouse the Obama administration opened in 2014 in response to an influx of unaccompanied children and families, was closed in November for renovations. This is the interesting part right here. Claims over kids in cages have been the subject of misinformation before. In May 2018, some prominent Trump critics shared photos of unaccompanied migrant children held in chain link fenced enclosures during the Obama administration and falsely claimed they showed children separated from parents under Trump. So that tells me that, okay, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't good and we were kind of separating families and that wasn't really cool or whatever, but it's different because Trump was using chain link fencing, so it seems like they're in prison. That's sort of the impression they're trying to leave on you. And now that Biden took back over, they're not in the chain link fencing anymore. They're still in these facilities and they're still separated from their families, but they're not. You get what they're doing? But that one just said that they took pictures from children who were in chain link fencing, right? Blamed it on Trump. Everyone got pissed off and was like, how could you do this? And then turns out the picture was actually from the Obama administration, meaning Obama also had kids in cages. No outrage about it. Let's continue. Last shit I want to share with y'all before I think I've proven my point. We got one more. Remember when everybody hated George Bush and they were like, yo, George Bush is the worst president ever because he started all these wars unnecessarily and all the fallout that came from George Bush, right? George Bush started 2 wars, which is crazy, which is insane. He started 2 wars. He started the Afghanistan war. I guess there's an argument of a justification for that. You could maybe say Iraq, no justification for Iraq at all. He started those 2 wars, killed millions of people, harmed millions more, displaced people all over the place, caused refugee crises in the Middle East and in Europe specifically, and then they tried to do the whole thing where it's like, oh, and then years later you get Trump who says things like, we don't want people from these shithole countries coming over here. So that's the start of it, I would say, in the modern era, was the Bush years, right? But after Bush got elected, we all rallied behind Obama because we thought he was going to give us health care. We thought he was going to end the wars. We thought all this good stuff that he was saying on the campaign trail, right? Yes, we can, all of that. Well, the main criticism against Bush was probably the wars, I would say. So, let's compare that. Bush started 2 wars. Countries bombed by the United States under the Obama administration. Here, let me see. I think I can blow this up. Oh, no. No, that's not what that does. Not what that does. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So we're bombing Africa. I remember talking to you guys about that before. We're bombing Africa. We got Libya. We got Somalia. There's also bombing in Niger. This is just an older article, I believe. This article was written in 2014. So you know the number's gone up since then. This is from 2014. Libya, Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. You know we're still in Syria. You know we're still there. So look at that. That's 7 countries as of 2014. You can add to that list Niger, which is also in Africa. Y'all know what we did in Libya, right? Like, Gaddafi was the leader. They were one of the richest countries, one of the most modernized countries in Africa. We overthrew their leader. There's video of him being brutally assaulted on the way to his death march. I'm not saying he was a good dude, but I'll say that things were better under him than when we came and took over, because now there's open slave markets in Libya. Open. So that's 7 countries. So you're trying to tell me that we hate Bush because he started 2 wars. We elected Obama because we're like, you're probably going to end some of these wars because you're a Democrat and, you know, you're saying all the right things on the campaign trail and all that. And then you add 5 countries to the list of places that we're actively attacking. So my question is, people, when are we going to face the reality that the Democrats and the Republicans, they govern the same way? They push for the same policies that only benefit a certain group of people. They all behave the same way. All of them. All. All. Like, I'm not trying to, it's all. You understand what I mean? 100%. Like, if you're a Democrat or Republican, mind you. I can't speak for independents, and I'm specifically speaking about Congress as well. I'm not really talking about, you know, state government, local government, things like that. That's way less corrupt. But once you're in Congress, if you have a D in front of your name or an R in front of your name, you serve one group of people. That's it. The only difference, and I'm going to keep saying this, the only difference is the Democrats rhetorically are nicer to minority groups than the Republicans are. That's it. So if that's all you care about is how they talk in public, then sure, the Democrats are better. If you care about what actually happens, the actual substance of these bills that they're signing and the actual substance of you get what I'm saying? Like when they're negotiating these deals and things of this nature, like what's actually going to happen. That's what I'm focused on all the time. And that's why I'm so disappointed in the Democrats and specifically the squad, specifically the Progressive Caucus, because they've had years to make moves. AOC used to say all the time, who cares if you're a one-term congressperson? You can do 10 years worth of change in one term as long as you're not scared. Well, she's been in, this is her probably going on, she'll, if she gets reelected, I think that will be her 3rd term. So I guess we know who's scared. Seems like you're scared, AOC. Are you scared of Nancy Pelosi? Are you scared that if you go too hard against the grain that you're going to get ostracized? You're not going to be invited to the parties. You're not going to get your book deal. You're not going to be allowed to go to the Met Gala. You're not going to be able to hang with Jesus and Mero. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that what you're scared of? You'll get kicked out of your celebrity circles? Because it's not like you're trying to do anything in Congress. You know what I mean? You're not trying to do anything. Right now you're saying we're rah-rah for Hakeem Jeffries. So, what do y'all think, man? Do y'all think that the two parties are way more similar than people give credit for? Or do you still have hope that one party is better than the other? And I'm not even going to say in which direction. I think y'all kind of know how I feel, but if you're a Republican, do you think that the Republicans are still that much better than the Democrats? Like, honestly, if you look at the policies. Because I have this conversation with people all the time. People are like, you know, I don't like Trump, I don't like Biden, but I did. This is Republicans, I mean. They'll say, you know, but I like Trump's policies better. And I'm like, yo, Joe Biden hasn't really changed any of Trump's policies. This is a team think thing. This is a character thing. You don't like Trump because he was loud and obnoxious or whatever, but you like his policies because they're Republican policies. You can take those exact same policies, if you label them Democrat, there's a certain segment of the population who will automatically hate those policies because they're Democrat policies now, even though they're the exact same word for word that the Republicans were doing. You get what I'm saying? What do y'all think? Y'all let me know. Thank you for tuning in. This is Shane G with Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. Make sure you like, you share, you subscribe. Drop it every Saturday. Appreciate y'all for the support. And we'll catch you next week. Peace.